Welcome to geometry. Our first lesson covers nets of three-dimensional objects and also isometric drawings. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to do a couple of things. You'll be able to recognize what the net of a three-dimensional object looks like and match those. You will also be able to draw simple nets of three-dimensional objects. And lastly, you'll be able to create isometric drawings of three-dimensional objects. So let's begin. A net is a two-dimensional diagram that you can fold to form a three-dimensional object or a figure. A net shows all of the surfaces of the figure in a single view. So let's take a look at what a net looks like. Our first problem, we have a cube right here, and this two-dimensional flat-looking diagram is called the net of the three-dimensional cube. So the question asks us which letters will be on the top and on the front of the cube. So we have letter D right here is on the right side. So what letter is going to be on the top and what letter will be on the front? Well, if we take a look at this when it's folded out flat, the letter C is left of the letter D. So letter C will be on the left. And then on the top, when you see how this is folded, you can see how it's creased. Letter E becomes the top. So letter E is on the top, and letter C is in the front. So how about this one? Let's see if you can do this one. In the net, in that last problem, it folds into a cube, but this time we have letter B in front. Which letters will be on the top and on the right side of the cube? So what's on top? What's on the right if B is now the front? So let's go back and look at that. So if B is on the front this time instead of C, so this letter B would be right here in the front. What's going to be on top and what's going to be to the right? Well, we're going to fold it the same way, and so E is still going to be on top, but C will be on the right-hand side. So top is E and the right is C. All right, how do we draw a net from a three-dimensional object? Well, here we have a graham cracker box, and they want us to draw the net and label it with its dimensions. So what you're really doing is you're basically imagining that you cut open the graham cracker box in about 3 spots. So in the first picture, what they've done is they've cut the graham cracker box right here along this red line, and they folded that flap up, and then they cut it along the bottom as well, and they folded that flap down, and you can see that down on the bottom. And then to get to the second picture here, what they've actually done is now they're going to cut along this right front edge. Okay, if you imagine making a cut right there and then pulling that front flap open, then you would have this figure that would be the inside of the graham cracker box. So we basically have our net drawn. We just need to figure out the dimensions. Well, they give us the height and the width and the depth. And so we need to label where those go. So here is a picture of your solution. And you're always going to have 2 of each thing when you're dealing with a rectangular prism. That's the name of this three-dimensional object, is a rectangular prism. And so we have basically this front and back surface. Those are both 14 by 20. That one and this one, okay? And then the top and the bottom surfaces right here are going to be 6 by 14. Top one and the bottom one. And then lastly we have the sides, the left side and the right side, and those are going to be 20 by 14, or excuse me, 20 by 6. See if I can write that in there for you. So both of those skinny rectangles right there will have that dimension. So here's a couple for you to practice. Part number 2, part A says, what is the net for the figure at the right? This triangular prism. Label the net with its dimensions, and then it asks you if there's another possible net other than the one that you drew, and if so, go ahead and draw it. So I'd like you to pause the video at this point and mess around with this, see if you can come up with a net for that three-dimensional figure. Now remember, the one thing you're going to want to do is you want to analyze what each surface is. So in this particular object, you have two triangular bases, the front here and the back, and then you're going to have three rectangles, okay, the bottom and the left and right side. Now the left and right side will have the same dimension, but the bottom will be different. So you should have two rectangles that are the same, one rectangle that's a little bit smaller, and then two triangles that are the same. See if you can draw that. Alright, I hope you gave that a try. Here's a solution. It's not the only solution, but here is a single solution with the dimensions given. So we have the two triangles that have 7 centimeters along their base, and then their edge is 10 centimeters. You can see that from the front, 10 centimeter edge and a 7 centimeter base. Front and back are the same, so top and bottom triangles will be the same. Then we also have a rectangle on the bottom. It's 7 centimeters by 4 centimeters, so that's this one right here, 7 by 4. And then we have a rectangle on the right side that's 4 by 10. That would be this one. And likewise, that one's the same as the one on the left, 4 by 10. So is there another possible net for that figure? Well, yes, there is. And here's an example of another one that you might have drawn. Equally correct. Okay, so maybe instead of having these rectangles off to the left and right, you might have them attached to the triangle. Okay, so that's another possibility. Alright, so then we're going to talk about isometric drawings. And an isometric drawing shows a corner view of a three-dimensional object or figure. It allows you to see the top, the front, and the side views of the figure. So here's your top view, here's your front view, and here's your right side view. You can draw an isometric drawing on isometric dot paper. I have some of this paper in the classroom. If I don't give it to you, you can make your own. Notice how the dot paper, if you drew 4 dots across, then the next line would just have 3 dots in between those 4 dots, and then you're back to your 4 dots, and then 3 dots, and then 4, and then 3. So you could make your own if you got in a pinch, but I do have some in the classroom for you to use if you would like that. So don't forget to ask me for that. Okay, so a net is different than an isometric drawing. The isometric drawing shows us depth, whereas a net shows us as a flat surface. Okay, so isometrics are showing depth, whereas the nets do not show depth, they show flat surfaces. So here we go. What is an isometric drawing of the cube structure at the right? Well, you can draw these isometric drawings in 3 steps. The first step would be to draw the front edges. Okay, so just what you would see if you were looking at the front, you have 2 blocks high, 2 blocks wide, and then only 1 block on the top and 1 block on the right. So that would be the front view. So the second step would be to draw the right side. So just add in those edges. So right here you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edges that draw the depth there for you. So those are all given in red. And lastly, the third step would be to draw the back edges. So once we have these, it's just connecting those last cubes together to get the back edges. So here's an opportunity for you to try this on your own. Pause the video and see how you do. Alright, this is going to go pretty quick. I hope you pause the video and try this on your own. You will gain more from actually pausing the video and trying things on your own, but I will give you the solutions when I ask you to pause the video. So first of all, remember we're going to draw the front edges. So you're going to have 2 cubes high and 1 cube wide. It might look very similar to what we had in the last drawing, okay? With the exception of, instead of being 2 cubes on top of each other, the second cube that's on the top is in the back, so it's offset a little bit. Our second step, remember we're going to draw the right edges. So I have our front edges in red. Here's the right edges. I drew those in blue. And then lastly we need to draw the back edges. And our back edges I've drawn in green. So that's what your isometric drawing should look like for those cubes. At the end of each video, I will include a lesson check such as this, where it's a typical couple of problems that give you the opportunity to practice what we learned in the video. When you get to your lesson checks, I will not be giving you the answers to those. I will go over those in class. Sometimes I'll collect those as a quiz. So make sure that you always do your lesson checks and be ready to go through those when you come to class the next day. So your first job in number 1 is to draw a net, and make sure you label each of those surfaces with their dimensions, both dimensions for every surface. And then number 2 is to make an isometric drawing of the cube structure that's shown. We'll see you in class next time.